Josh never thought he would share his apartment with an alien. But here he was, eating cereal while his new roommate, Nali, floated a few inches off the floor, blinking with large violet eyes and scribbling notes on a glowing tablet. Nali came from a planet called Earthish. She was here as part of an intergalactic exchange program. Josh had agreed to be her roommate because the university offered free rent and extra credits. He didn't expect things to get weird so fast. "Josh," Nali said suddenly, "may I ask you something important?" Josh looked up, still chewing. "Sure. What's up?" "What is the emotional and biological purpose of human reproduction?" she asked, tilting her head in a way that made her ears twitch. Josh nearly choked on his cereal. "What?" Nali blinked slowly. "I've begun my study, but human reproduction seems to involve many steps. Some are physical, some are emotional. I wish to understand both." Josh coughed and set his spoon down. "Hold on. Why are you studying that?" "It is required," she replied. "My people reproduce by data splitting and gene selection, but your kind mixes emotion with biology. That is rare. Very rare. I must understand it deeply." Josh didn't know what to say. This wasn't something he talked about, even with humans. And now an alien roommate wanted to study it like a science project. "I don't think I'm the best person to explain all this," Josh mumbled. Nali's face showed confusion. "But you are human. You must know." Josh scratched the back of his head. "It's complicated. Humans don't just reproduce because of biology. Love, connection, timing. It's not like flipping a switch." "Love," Nali whispered, writing the word quickly. "That term appears often. I must study it closely." Josh was still processing everything when Nali continued. "I have already created a plan. Step 1. Observe natural human behavior. Step 2. Simulate courtship. Step 3. Attempt reproduction behavior in a safe, controlled setting. You will help me, yes?" Josh's eyes widened. "Whoa, slow down. Nali, this isn't something you just try like a school project." Nali tilted her head again. "Why not? Is reproduction not a normal human function?" Josh laughed nervously. "It is, but it's also personal, emotional. Not something you study like math. People get hurt if you don't understand that." Nali went quiet for a moment. Then she smiled softly. "That is why I wish to learn from you. I promise I will not cause harm." Josh stared at her, unsure whether to be flattered or terrified. Somehow, he knew his life was about to get much more complicated. The next morning, Josh found Nali sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by open books and tablets. A diagram of the human body hovered in the air, spinning slowly. Nali's violet eyes were focused, and her fingers moved quickly as she typed on her alien device. "You're up early," Josh said, rubbing his eyes. "I have completed reading 7 biology textbooks," Nali replied calmly. "But I still have many questions." Josh groaned and poured himself coffee. "This again?" "Yes," Nali said, standing up. "There are many things I do not understand. For example, why do humans kiss? Is it necessary for reproduction?" Josh nearly dropped his cup. "Whoa, okay, Nali, can we not talk about kissing before breakfast?" "But it is an important step, is it not?" Nali looked at him seriously. "I have listed over 30 human behaviors connected to mating. Holding hands, eye contact, dancing, sharing food, and saying, 'I love you.' Do all of these lead to reproduction?" Josh sighed and sat down. "Not exactly. They're part of romance, emotional bonding. Humans don't just make to make babies. We also want connection, trust, feelings." "Feelings," Nali repeated. "A very confusing subject." Josh nodded. "Yeah, it confuses humans too." Later that day, Josh took Nali outside to help her observe real people. They sat at a cafe near the university. Couples walked by, laughing, holding hands, smiling at each other. Nali watched them closely, taking notes and whispering questions. "Those two touched noses," she whispered. "Is that part of the mating process?" Josh chuckled. "That's just a playful thing. Not serious." "What about those two?" Nali pointed to a couple arguing loudly. "Are they mating?" "No," Josh said. "They're fighting. It happens sometimes in relationships." Nali frowned. "This is very complex." Josh nodded. "Welcome to human emotions." At one point, Nali stood up and approached a woman sitting nearby. "Excuse me," she said. "May I ask how long it took for you to select a reproductive partner, and what method of courtship you used?" The woman stared at her in shock. Josh jumped up, grabbed Nali's arm, and pulled her back. "You can't ask strangers that." "Why not?" Nali blinked. "I was polite." Josh groaned. "Because it's private. Humans don't talk about that with strangers in public." Nali looked confused. "But how will I gather real data?" Josh shook his head. "From now on, ask me first before you talk to people about this stuff." Nali nodded slowly. "Understood." That night, Nali added a note to her digital report. "Human reproduction is more emotional than logical. Social rules are strange and must be followed carefully." As Josh watched her typing away, he wondered just how far this study was going to go, and if he'd survive it. The apartment was quiet. Josh was watching a movie on the couch when Nali walked in, holding a notebook and looking serious. "I have finished studying human biology," she said, "but now I must learn about emotional reproduction." Josh looked confused. "Emotional what now?" "Emotional reproduction," Nali repeated. "Your species doesn't just reproduce with your bodies. You do it with your feelings. Love, trust, connection. These are part of your mating rituals. I must experience them to understand." Josh raised an eyebrow. "You can't just experience emotions like doing a science experiment." Nali sat beside him and opened her notebook. "Then teach me. How do humans fall in love?" Josh laughed a little. "If I knew the answer to that, I'd be a lot more popular." Nali stared at him. "Then how do humans begin emotional bonding?" Josh thought for a moment. "It usually starts with talking. Spending time together, getting to know each other, sharing things like hobbies, food, jokes." "I see," Nali said, writing everything down. "So if we eat together and share jokes, we may begin bonding emotionally." Josh turned red. "I mean, not us. I mean, not unless you." Nali looked at him curiously. "Why are you nervous?" "I'm not nervous," Josh said quickly, crossing his arms. "You are blushing," Nali said with a smile. "Your body temperature has increased and your breathing has changed. Is this part of the bonding?" Josh groaned. "No, it's called embarrassment." "Embarrassment," Nali repeated. "A defense reaction to emotional exposure. Fascinating." Josh stood up. "Okay, enough studying for today. I'm going to cook dinner. You want to help?" Nali's eyes lit up. "Yes, sharing food is on the bonding list." They entered the kitchen. Josh showed her how to chop vegetables, and Nali followed his instructions very seriously. At one point, she held up a carrot. "Does this food increase the chance of romantic bonding?" Josh laughed. "No, but it tastes good." As they cooked, Nali asked more questions about emotions, how people know when they're in love, what heartbreak feels like, and why some people stay together forever while others don't. Josh answered honestly, though sometimes awkwardly. "Love's not easy to explain. It's not just feelings. It's choices too. Being kind, being patient, staying even when things get hard." Nali looked thoughtful. "That sounds difficult, but beautiful." When dinner was ready, they sat and ate together at the small table. Nali smiled after her first bite. "This is pleasant. I feel warm inside." Josh smiled. "That's called comfort." Nali wrote in her notebook again. Emotional bonding includes shared time, care, food, and kindness. Feelings may be soft, but they are powerful. Josh looked at her across the table and realized something surprising. He was enjoying this strange journey more than he expected. One quiet evening, Josh was reading on the couch when Nolly walked in wearing a very odd outfit. She had a hat with flowers, a scarf tied around her neck, and shoes 2 sizes too big. Josh blinked. Nolly, what are you wearing?" "This is date clothing," she said proudly. "I study human romance movies and observe that people dress nicely for mating rituals called dates. I am ready." Josh sat up. "Wait, ready for what?" "Our simulation," Nellie replied. "I want to understand human dating behavior. You will act as my date. We will follow common patterns, greetings, compliments, food sharing, and ending with emotional closeness." Josh stared at her. "You want to go on a fake date with me?" "Yes," she said, "for science." Josh sighed, but he couldn't help smiling. "Okay, fine. Let's do this. But we're keeping it simple." Nolly clapped her hands. "Excellent. First, we meet at the door." She ran outside, waited a few seconds, then knocked. Josh opened the door and tried not to laugh. "Hello." Nolly bowed slightly. "Greetings, potential mate." Josh coughed. "Try just saying hey." "Hi," she repeated, then held out a bunch of plastic spoons. "These are for you. A gift." Josh accepted them, confused. "Spoons. You like cereal," she explained. "I thought this would make you feel loved." Josh smiled. "Okay, that's thoughtful." They sat at the table and pretended to order food. Nolly lit a candle and stared at him seriously. "You have a nice face. Your eyebrows are very strong." Josh laughed. "Thanks, I think." They talked, shared chips, and even danced a little in the living room. Nolly stepped on his feet several times but apologized each time with a big smile. After a while, she stood up and said, "Now, we do the final step." Josh raised an eyebrow. "Final step." Nolly knelt on one knee and pulled out a shiny bolt from her repair kit. "Josh, will you accept this bonding device and become my emotional partner in future reproduction studies?" Josh's eyes widened. "Whoa, wait, what?" "This is a mock proposal," she said. "Like in the movies." Josh chuckled nervously. "You're supposed to pretend, not actually kneel like that." "But it feels more real this way," Nolly said, looking confused. "Do you accept?" Josh looked at her sincere face and smiled. "I accept the bolt as a roommate gift." Nolly nodded, satisfied. Progress complete. Later that night, Nolly added to her report, "Simulated dates help reveal human comfort, humor, and closeness. Even pretend bonding can cause genuine feelings." Josh sat on his bed and stared at the bolt on his desk. He had only agreed to help Nolly study. But now, something about her made his heart race. This wasn't just a science project anymore. The next morning, Josh walked into the kitchen and froze. Nolly stood there with a serious expression, holding a large poster board covered in colorful images. "I have created a plan to speed up emotional bonding," she said proudly. Josh blinked. "Oh, what kind of plan?" "It is based on romance movies and advice blogs," she said. "Step 1. Surprise expressions of love. Step 2. Physical closeness. Step 3. Public confession." Josh raised an eyebrow. "That sounds dangerous." "I am ready," she said, already wearing a red ribbon on her head and holding a basket full of heart-shaped objects. "I have crafted 24 love tokens using alien resin. They will not melt." Josh opened his mouth, then closed it again. "Okay, let's just go slow." But Nolly was already out the door. Josh quickly followed her across campus. At the library, Nolly approached a group of students and suddenly shouted, "Attention! I would like to announce my feelings for Josh, my emotional research partner. He is kind, warm, and has excellent posture. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Josh, who turned red. "Oh no," he muttered. Nellie smiled and handed him a glowing heart-shaped resin. "This is for you." Some students clapped. Others just stared in shock. Josh gave a small wave and grabbed Nellie's arm. "Okay, thank you. That's enough love announcements for today." Outside, he pulled her aside. "Nellie, you can't do stuff like that in public." "Why not?" she asked. "Is public expression of emotion not encouraged?" "Not like that," he said. "It has to be private sometimes, quiet, especially when it's real." Nellie tilted her head, but it felt real. "And I wanted others to know you are special." Josh's heart skipped a beat. "Wait, do you mean that?" "I do not understand all emotions yet," she said softly. "But when I'm near you, I feel light and calm. I want to learn more of that feeling." Josh looked into her eyes. "That's not just research anymore, Nellie." Nellie paused, then nodded slowly. "Then maybe this study is becoming something more." Back at home, Nellie sat on the couch and updated her report. Cultural confusion can lead to strange reactions, but sometimes mistakes reveal real feelings beneath the surface. Josh watched her from the kitchen, still holding the glowing heart. A part of him wanted to pretend this was all just a game, but deep down, he knew something was changing. Maybe Nellie wasn't just learning about human emotions. Maybe she was starting to feel them too. It had been a quiet evening. Josh was sitting on the couch, watching a space documentary, when Nellie entered the room holding a strange silver device. "I am ready for the next stage," she said calmly. Josh blinked. "Stage of what?" "Physical bonding," Nellie replied. "It is common in human mating behavior. I have studied trust building through closeness. Would you allow me to begin the next step?" Josh turned off the TV. What exactly do you mean by next step?" Nellie raised the silver device. "This tool helps calm brainwaves and encourages emotional openness. In my culture, it is used during connection rituals." Josh stood up slowly. "Nellie, humans don't use machines for bonding like that. And we don't move forward unless both people agree and feel ready." Nellie tilted her head, confused. "But I assumed we were progressing. We have shared food, emotions, laughter. Was that not preparation?" Josh sighed, trying to stay calm. It was real. But emotional bonding isn't a checklist. It's about feeling ready. You can't rush it. Nellie lowered the device, her eyes dimming. "I did not want to make you uncomfortable." Josh softened. "I know. You're not trying to hurt anyone. But this is a human boundary. Even if we care about someone, we need space and time to understand those feelings." Nellie sat down, her shoulders low. "In my culture, connection is logical. We measure compatibility and move forward. There is no waiting, no guessing." "Well," Josh said gently, "humans are full of guessing. That's part of love. It's scary sometimes, but that's what makes it real." Nellie stayed quiet for a moment. "Then I have made a mistake." Josh sat beside her. "It's okay. You're learning. That's what this is all about, right?" Nellie nodded slowly. "Yes. And now I see. Emotional reproduction is not just about knowledge. It is about patience and respect." Josh smiled. "Exactly. And for what it's worth, I care about you. This whole experience, it means something to me too." Nellie looked at him, her expression softening. "Then I will wait. I want this to be real, not just a report." That night, Nellie updated her research log. Human emotional bonding must never be rushed. Consent and comfort are more important than progress. True connection grows slowly, like a quiet light in the dark. Josh watched her typing, feeling a mix of emotions. He knew now, this wasn't just helping a roommate with research. Something deeper was forming between them, and neither of them fully understood where it would go next. A few days passed since Nallie's misunderstanding. The air between her and Josh was different now, lighter. They were still roommates, still learning, but something had shifted. Nallie seemed more careful in her approach, and Josh was starting to see how deeply she had been trying to understand human emotions. One evening, as they sat together on the couch watching a movie, Nallie spoke up. "Josh, I have been thinking about what you said." Josh paused the movie and turned to her. About human emotions being full of guessing. About not rushing. Nallie's voice was soft, almost unsure. "I want to understand more. But I don't want to make any more mistakes." Josh looked at her, his heart warming. "Nallie, you've never really made a mistake. You've just been trying. I get it. I know it's hard to learn something as complicated as human emotions, especially when it's so different from what you know." Nallie looked down at her hands. "But now, I realize, when I tried to move too fast, I was not thinking about you. I was only thinking about completing the study. I didn't understand how much patience it takes to feel safe with someone." Josh smiled gently. "It's okay. Honestly, we're in this together. I mean, I'm still learning things too. About trust. About sharing space with someone from another world. It's all a bit new for me too." Nallie nodded, but she didn't look entirely convinced. "But do you think that I could ever truly understand? Emotions are so different from mine. My species does not feel the same way. I fear I may never feel what humans do." Josh's heart ached at the sadness in her voice. He reached out and gently touched her arm. "You're already feeling something, Nallie. I can see it. It's like you've started to feel what it's like to trust, to care about someone without a checklist. That's real." Nallie's eyes met his. "But how do I know if I'm doing it right? How can I trust myself to understand?" Josh paused, thinking. "I think, when it comes to emotions, you don't always know if you're doing it right. But you try. And the more you try, the clearer it becomes." Nallie's face softened as she absorbed his words. "So, you think I'm on the right path?" Josh nodded. "I do. You've already come so far. And I'm here to help. Nallie, you don't have to figure it all out alone." There was a long silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like a moment of understanding, a moment where both of them were simply present. Finally, Nallie smiled. "Thank you, Josh. I think I understand now." Josh returned the smile, feeling the warmth spread through him. "You're doing great. And I'm glad you're here with me. Learning, growing, together." Nallie wrote in her notebook later that night, "Emotional bonding is not just a task to complete. It is a journey with mistakes and lessons along the way. Trust and understanding must be nurtured." Josh watched her write, realizing that what had started as a strange experiment was turning into something much deeper, something neither of them could quite explain. But for now, they were both okay with that. The morning sunlight filtered through the curtains as Josh poured coffee into his mug. It was a quiet Saturday, and Nallie was at the table, scribbling in her notebook. She had been working on her final report for weeks now, an analysis of human emotional bonding. Josh had never expected to be part of an intergalactic research project, but here he was. "Josh, I am ready to present my findings," Nallie said suddenly, breaking the silence. Josh nearly choked on his coffee. "Wait, what? Right now?" "Yes," Nallie said, standing up and smoothing down her shirt. "The time has come for my final presentation. I want to show you what I have learned." Josh set his mug down, a little nervous. "All right, let's see it." Nallie activated a small holographic projector. Images of human couples flashed across the room, some smiling, some holding hands, others looking lost in thought. Nallie spoke, her voice clear and confident. "Humans bond emotionally through shared experiences, care, and trust. Their method of reproduction is deeply tied to feelings, not just biology. Emotional connection is a primary driver in relationships. Josh listened closely as she continued, showing different data points from her research. Human behavior includes kindness, patience, and vulnerability. You do not just connect physically, you connect emotionally. This bond is what makes reproduction not only a physical act, but a deeply personal and meaningful experience. Nali turned the projector off and looked directly at Josh. My research has shown me something I did not expect. Josh raised an eyebrow. What's that? She hesitated for a moment before speaking. That emotional bonding is not something that can be studied easily. It cannot be measured or analyzed with the same precision as biology. It is fluid. It is unpredictable. But it is real. Josh felt his heart beat a little faster. I think you're right about that. Nali's eyes softened. And through this process, I have realized, I have developed feelings I did not expect. I have learned to trust you, Josh, in ways that go beyond science. Josh blinked, taken aback. You mean you care about me? Nali nodded slowly, her voice soft. Yes, I care about you, not as a subject to study, but as a person. You have helped me understand what it means to feel, to connect with someone, not for research, but because you truly care. Josh swallowed, unsure of what to say. I care about you too, Nali. There was a moment of silence between them, but it wasn't awkward. It felt natural, comfortable, like they had both been waiting for this realization to happen. I guess this is where the report ends, Nali said with a small smile. Not with conclusions, but with a new beginning. Josh smiled back, feeling something shift inside him. He wasn't sure where this would lead, whether they would remain roommates or something more, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid to let it unfold. You've done great, Josh said, his voice steady. I'm proud of you, Nali. She smiled brightly, her alien features glowing with contentment. Thank you, Josh. I think this is the most important lesson of all. The rest of the study can wait. What matters is this moment. And for the first time, Josh agreed. What mattered was this moment, right here, right now, with Nali. The days following Nali's presentation were filled with a strange mix of excitement and uncertainty. Nali had submitted her final report to the university's intergalactic research panel, and the moment of truth had arrived. Josh stood in the hallway outside the lecture hall, waiting with Nali for her presentation to be reviewed. He could feel his palms sweating. Though Nali had made incredible progress in her study, he was nervous about how the panel would react to the emotional and personal aspects of her findings. Nali stood beside him, radiating calm confidence. It is time, she said, glancing at her holographic tablet, which displayed a countdown. Josh nodded, trying to steady his breathing. Yeah, it's time. They entered the lecture hall, where a group of alien researchers sat at a long table. Some were humanoid, others insect-like, and a few had glowing, transparent bodies. The lead researcher, an imposing figure with 3 sets of eyes, cleared their throat as Nali and Josh took their seats. Begin the presentation, the researcher said in a booming voice. Nali stood up and activated her device. Images of human relationships, emotion-filled moments, and physical connections flashed across the screen. She began speaking with the same clarity and confidence she had shown Josh, explaining her findings, the complexity of human emotion, the unpredictability of love, and the importance of trust and respect in any connection. As she spoke, Josh watched the researchers' faces. They seemed intrigued, though a few exchanged skeptical glances. He could tell they were expecting more scientific evidence, more data, but Nali was showing them something intangible, something they couldn't easily measure or categorize. And now, Nali said, turning toward Josh, I will share a personal conclusion. Through my study of human emotional reproduction, I have realized that true connection cannot be understood with just facts and research. It must be felt. Josh's heart skipped a beat. The room went quiet, and Nali continued, her voice steady. I did not expect to feel this way about my subject, she said, her gaze locked on Josh. but I have come to care deeply for Josh, not as a test subject, but as a partner, a friend, and someone I trust. This study is no longer just data. It has become real. My feelings for him are real. The room remained still. Josh's breath caught in his throat. He wasn't sure what to do, whether to speak up or stay quiet. He glanced at Nali and saw the sincerity in her eyes. One of the researchers cleared their throat. Fascinating. But can you explain what this emotional attachment means for your findings? Will it affect your objectivity? Nali took a deep breath. I believe it enhances my findings. It shows that emotional connections are not just theoretical, they are part of who we are. Humans bond not just for reproduction, but for companionship, for love. This is not a weakness. It is the strength of humanity. The lead researcher's many eyes blinked slowly. Your conclusion is unconventional, but we see value in your findings. Josh exhaled, feeling the tension in the room lift a little. The researchers seemed to consider her words, though their faces were hard to read. After a long pause, the lead researcher spoke again. Very well. This will be discussed further. Thank you, Nali. You have given us much to think about. Nali nodded. Thank you. As they left the hall, Nali looked up at Josh, her face soft with relief. I am pleased. The panel did not reject me. Josh smiled, his heart still racing. You did great, Nali. You showed them what really matters. Nali paused and looked at him, her expression more serious now. Josh, there is one more thing I would like to ask. Josh turned to her. What is it? Nali hesitated, then stepped closer, her voice almost a whisper. Will you continue this journey with me, beyond the study? Not as research, but as something more. Josh's heart skipped a beat. He realized he didn't have to think about his answer. Yes, he said, his voice steady. I will. And in that moment, something between them shifted, something deeper than science, deeper than study. It was real. And they were both ready for whatever came next. The days following the panel's approval were filled with a sense of quiet satisfaction. Nali's research had been accepted, and the bond between her and Josh felt deeper than ever. But as they both tried to move forward, they realized something important. This journey wasn't over yet. Josh found Nali in the living room one afternoon, sitting cross-legged on the floor, her holographic tablet in front of her. She looked up as he entered, a small smile playing on her lips. Hey, Josh said, walking over. What's up? I was thinking, Nali began, her tone thoughtful, about our last conversation, about what it means to continue our journey, not as research, but as something more. Josh sat down beside her. Yeah, I've been thinking about that too. Nali's eyes searched his face, as if she was looking for something. What does that mean to you, Josh? What do you want from this? From us? Josh took a deep breath. He had spent weeks helping Nali with her study, guiding her through human emotions, watching as she learned and grew. But now things had shifted, and he realized how much he had grown too. I guess I want to see where this can go, he said, his voice soft. I've been kind of afraid to admit it, but I started to care about you more than I expected. More than just being roommates. I think we've built something real. Nali smiled, her eyes warm with understanding. I feel the same, but I don't want to rush. I want to take things one step at a time, just like we did with the study. We've both learned so much, but now, it's about what feels right. Josh nodded, feeling a sense of calm wash over him. He hadn't expected this journey to lead them to where they were now, but there was something beautiful about it. They had started as two strangers, one human, one alien, learning about each other's worlds. And now they were starting to understand something even more important, the value of patience, trust, and shared experiences. So, what's the next step? Josh asked, a grin creeping up on his face. Nali chuckled. I think the next step is simple. We keep being who we are. We spend time together. We share our thoughts, our emotions, and maybe even our fears. We continue to learn from each other without needing a checklist or a plan. Josh smiled, feeling the weight of her words. I like that. No checklists. Nolly reached out, gently touching his hand. No checklists. Just us. As they sat there together, Josh realized something he hadn't fully understood before. Sometimes, the best connections don't come with instructions. Sometimes, it's just about being with someone, learning and growing at your own pace. Later that evening, Nolly added a final entry to her report, which had now evolved beyond her original study. I have learned that the true essence of emotional connection cannot be measured. It is found in the quiet moments, the unspoken understanding, and the trust that grows over time. This journey has taught me more than I expected. But most importantly, it has shown me that love, in its simplest form, is about being present. Josh looked at her screen, and then at Nolly, his heart filled with warmth. They weren't just roommates anymore. They were something more, and that was enough for now. As the days went on, Josh and Nolly continued to explore their bond. There were no answers, no guarantees, but they didn't need them. They had each other, and that was the most important thing of all. And so, their journey continued, one step at a time, together.